Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Asian Tales podcast. Today's guest is Miss Lan Ho. She is an entrepreneur babe based in Chicago. And today we discuss about launching two businesses, how her Vietnamese culture influenced her businesses, and how she really championed herself to follow her dreams and to get stuff done. Hi, Lan. Welcome onto the podcast. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Of course, anything for you.
Thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm just dandy, just balancing a million gazillion things, but I'm happy to be here. So,
What sort of things are you balancing? What do you got going on?
girl, so much. I'm sure we'll talk about it, but as you know, I'm starting two businesses, two startups, all at the same time. I just got done wrapping up a pageant with grant applications. I mean, the list goes on and on. I'm trying to be a homeowner, just everything. So,
Damn, you got stuff going on. Lots of
yes,
balancing
yes,
going.
yes.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about your companies that you're launching. But before we get into that, I was hoping you could do a little introduction on yourself. So, who are you? Where are you from? What's your ethnicity? All of the goods.
Absolutely. So, yeah, my name is Lan Ho. I am originally from, I guess, born in California, raised in St. Louis, and now I live in Chicago. So, I've been a little bit all over the place. A little bit about myself. I am a pharmacist. I graduated from pharmacy school 2 years ago, worked as a traditional pharmacist for 2 years. And I've recently taken a huge transition, leap in my life and have taken a total 1000% bet on myself and am just creating and starting all of these businesses that I'm super excited about. And I feel so lucky and blessed to be able to transition smoothly into something that I love. And I think that's kind of my core message, just overall. So I hope, we'll talk about that, but that's pretty
Yeah,
much
yeah,
the gist
yeah.
of it.
So, I didn't realize you were born in California and then moved over to St. Louis. I thought you were born in St. Louis, moved to Chicago.
No, I was born in Oakland, California, actually. So
Really?
the Bay Area, yeah. So my parents met in Oakland. Both were, refugees, met in Oakland, California, and had the four of us. So I have three other siblings and moved to St. Louis when I was about five. So pretty much raised in St. Louis. I don't really remember a lot about California, but yeah.
So, did you just say both of your parents were refugees?
Yes, they both Vietnamese. They escaped the war literally on a boat. Uh, I don't know if my mom what refugee camp she was in. I know my dad was in a refugee camp in Malaysia
Hmm.
for a few years, and then they met each other while in Oakland, California. So I had,
Wow.
yep, immigrant parents. So I'm a first gen.
So, did they ever have any issues coming over as refugees? Like, were they faced with like racism or people saying you're refugees, you don't deserve to be here, something like that?
Yeah. I would, you know what? I honestly have actually never asked them those exact questions. I would assume so. I definitely think they faced a number of barriers and a number of obstacles while, transitioning over here to the United States. And I know it wasn't pretty for them when I was younger. So, or
Mhm.
even, before that. So that's a good question. I feel like anytime that we do talk about it, it's always like this super emotional conversation that doesn't go anywhere,
Mhm.
just because it's obviously an emotional conversation and topic. But yeah, those
Mhm.
are good questions that I feel like as like where I am right now in my life, I would love to know and I would love to understand. But yeah, we just haven't really had those specific, questions.
Conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
What about you growing up? Did you ever find that you were faced with challenges being Vietnamese, parents of immigrants, first generation? Did you ever have difficulties with that or face any challenges with that?
Yeah, not directly. I wouldn't say that I directly faced any challenges because I am Vietnamese, at least to my understanding. Yeah, to be completely honest, I know a lot of people that I've talked to definitely had those challenges and definitely faced some major criticism and obstacles. But I think I mean I would say I was pretty blessed, and at least I maybe oblivious. I have no idea, but I just really didn't, you know, uh, kind of recognize those direct things. So
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, you never want to wish that upon anyone, so I'm glad to hear
right.
that you had a really positive experience about that. So, tell me, I'm not very familiar with Vietnamese culture. Could you tell me a little bit about it and educate me on it?
Yeah, I've learned so much actually about my culture in the last year or so, so much to the point where I'm starting a business around it. But my business is called Fat Milk. It's a Vietnamese coffee brand. And I think the one thing that I really love about this company, and the reason what motivated me to start this company, is to showcase and story tell the culture of Vietnamese people. So what I'm really trying to emphasize, not only to make sure that Vietnamese people benefit from the culture industry or the coffee industry, excuse me, overall, but more so, I think it's such a unique culture where we come from so much, we come from a war-stricken country. There's so much obstacles to overcome, so much resilience in our blood and in our culture that that's something that I want to showcase and being able to um, tell those stories and you know all the great things about it through a cup of coffee. So that's
Yeah,
something I'm excited about.
that sounds really awesome. You said that was in like the last year. So, what was the defining moment that made you decide, you know what, my culture is badass and I want to share it and I want to do it this way? What was that defining moment for you?
I think a lot of us who come from a very unique and different culture compared to a lot of our friends, at least for me, I grew up in a predominantly white area. I didn't have a lot of Asian friends, to be completely honest. And so I think for me, it wasn't like a specific defining moment. It was more so uh, suppressing my culture and not embracing it. So I think as I grew up and I realized how beautiful it is to understand who you really are and to take advantage of that, that's when I really started to embrace a lot of things about me, like my natural eye color, my natural hair, and just what I can identify with. So um, it was just a progressive time, I would say, to kind of get to where I am today. And I'm like 1000% embracing who I am and where I came from and telling those stories. So I think it takes time for people. I
Mhm.
don't necessarily think it's kind of like, at least for me, being raised in the Midwest.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just time.
So, do you think that how do I phrase this? You said you grew up with not many Asian friends and you weren't really surrounded by many other Asians and it took you some time to really embrace that. Do you think that you wish or you would have preferred growing up with more Asian influence in your life or more individuals surrounding you, I suppose, that were Asian?
Yeah. I would say some of my closest, the people that I connect with the most.
Mhm.
Um, well, let me see. Answer that question.
It's okay.
I'm not. I think I'm so blessed the way that I was grew up, and I
Mhm.
learned to embrace so many different cultures. I really wouldn't want it one way or the other. I think my life would have been different
Mhm.
if I were surrounded by more Asian friends. I had more Asian people around me, embrace more Asian cultures. I have friends in the West Coast where, going to an all Asian high school is totally normal for them. And
Mhm.
for me, visiting them and seeing so many Asian people was such a kind of like
Such a
a culture
shock.
shock. Yeah, exactly. So I don't necessarily know how my life would be different. Maybe I would have embraced my culture from the get go and, maybe
Mhm.
earlier on, I could see that happening. But learning to embrace my culture and celebrate it was something that I did on my own,
Mm-hmm.
without really the influences of anyone or my surroundings at all. It was,
Mm-hmm.
learning to love yourself, learning to love who you are and where you come from, and then
Mm-hmm.
choosing to celebrate that. So I think, and that's why I feel so strongly about it, and starting a business around it.
Yeah.
So
I want to ask one more question about your parents. So you said that they were refugees. You were born of immigrants. Did your parents, when they moved out to the Midwest, were they trying to surround you by Asian people, surround you by white people? Were they trying to separate you from their history, trying to move away from that, or what?
you know my understanding, is they moved to the Midwest for opportunities. So where they were, they it was my aunt. She, branched off. My dad is the oldest of like seven. My mom's the 10th child of, so I have a
Mhm.
huge, huge family. And so, my dad being the oldest, I think he felt this huge responsibility to kind of support his family. And so I think, with his parents not speaking a lick of English or anything, their
Mhm.
children, really had to seek ways to survive. And my aunt, who is the second oldest on my dad's side, she just branched out, went to the Midwest, saw opportunities, that Asian people could, bring their craft to the Midwest and really, make a business out of it. And so
Mhm.
she came here first, actually, and told everyone else to come. So everyone always
Come
asked me,
on,
why did you move to
guys.
St.
Come over
Louis?
here.
Right. Anyone who like asked me in St. Louis, like, where are you from? And I said, oh, I have family in California. Like, why did you move here? So I just blame my
Yeah.
aunt. No, I'm just
You're
kidding.
like, it's all my aunt's fault, I promise.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so I'm getting a better understanding about you, but now I want to talk more about your businesses. So you have three businesses going. Two of them are based on your Vietnamese culture, and one of them is based on your pharmaceutical background. Is this correct? Am I getting this right?
So the third one, were you referring to this? Or what's the third one?
The third one is your beauty stuff that you were working
And then the coffee.
the coffee, and then Yip.
So Yip and the beauty thing is the same.
Okay. Sorry, I thought Yip was a separate thing.
No, yeah, no, it's the
Okay.
same thing. Yeah,
Okay.
I
Okay.
should have. Yeah. So I started two companies, all at the same time, actually around the same time. It wasn't
Hmm.
like it was on the same day, but yeah. So I started Fat Milk last year in 2019. This is something that I've been wanting to do forever. And when I say I started, that's when I actually incorporated it. But I
Yeah.
conceptualized this idea for years, just being in higher education for 10 years. I am a huge coffee fanatic, coffee obsessed, just everything coffee. Even the word coffee excites me,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but I've just wanted to do it for so long. And I saw an opportunity. You can talk to any, Vietnamese person, and, cafe sida, coffee is pretty much in their vocabulary. They
Hmm.
pretty much have had it in their life or know about it, or just it's so ingrained in the culture. But
So if it sorry, let me interject here. If it took you a while to really embrace your culture later on in your adult life, you really started to embrace it. How did you Was coffee still a part of your life growing up? Was that still something that was in the background in your family household, or was that something later on in your adulthood that you were like, "Oh, damn, Vietnamese coffee, my culture, like I want to learn more about it now."
right. Yeah, I mean, Vietnamese culture, I mean, I'm sorry, Vietnamese coffee has been something that I've had and enjoyed for years. It's been something in our house for as long as I know. The point of actually making a business out of it and bringing it, creating a platform and sharing it with the world is
Mhm.
something that I started to kind of really take action on as I've, gotten older. But
Mhm.
coffee, in general, has just always been a huge part of my life, and Vietnamese coffee is something that's always been on like kind of like the
Mhm.
back burner, but somewhere in there. Yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed it. I just never really saw it as an opportunity.
So I follow your social media for Fat Milk actually, and I saw you post a little tidbit about the water buffalo is the logo. Could you explain that a little bit more? Like, how did you choose the logo? What's the significance? Yada yada.
So I actually have a partner, and he is a creative genius, and he is actually the one that created the logo and incorporated the water buffalo into the brand. And I just thought it was genius. The water buffalo is something that is an icon in agricultural practices in Vietnam. And I wrote like a little script about this, but it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much a farmer's like most valuable possession
Mm-hmm.
in the agricultural world, because everything in Vietnam, it's done still very traditional. They don't, a lot of farmers don't have these big machineries. It's not sophisticated. They still pick things by hand, plant things by hand, do everything. It's a lot of manual labor.
Mm-hmm.
So if a farmer has a water buffalo, that's kind of like, that's their machine, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's,
Mm-hmm.
it's the water buffalo is helping. It's like an extra pair of hands, and they're tough and they're strong and they're committed and they're loyal to their farmers. So it just made sense. And
Is it almost like the water buffalo could be like a part of your family since it's a living being and it's working on the farm and it's helping bring things to the table?
absolutely. And that's how I wrote it. I was just, the water buffalo is a part of the family. It's treated as a part of the family and valued as a
Mm-hmm.
member of the family. So yeah. And, that's kind of what we wanted to bring to Fat Milk, is that, we were creating this very family oriented, community driven
Mm-hmm.
atmosphere. And it's a lot about bringing Fat Milk into your home as a part of your family and enjoying it with your family and your friends. And it's all about community. So
Mm-hmm. And was it really important for you to have a partner from Vietnam? Like, was this in the works from the beginning, or it's something you decided later on?
yeah, I decided this definitely later on. So this partnership was probably, you know, it's actually a very recent change in the business. When I first
Mm-hmm.
started Fat Milk, I was kind of a one woman show, and I had no idea what I was doing. But I think the most important thing for me was to make sure that Vietnamese people benefit from
Mm-hmm.
this transaction.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, I've said
And
this a million times.
how would that work? Sorry.
Yeah, because Vietnam is the second exporter of Robusta beans in the world, and people enjoy it and they purchase it, but they have no idea that it's from Vietnam. And Vietnam doesn't get that platform on an international stage. They don't get the recognition that they deserve. So, it's important for me to make sure that everyone knows that
Mm-hmm.
these beans are imported specifically from local farmers in Vietnam, and
Mm-hmm.
those local farmers are being acknowledged for that. I feel like when you acknowledge and acknowledge them, that creates opportunities, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So does your shop have, or you have a shop? Is the shop? What's going on? How can listeners get some Fat Milk coffee?
absolutely. So we are actually finalizing the packaging for the retail bags. It's actually milk cartons.
Okay.
But yeah, it's going to be 12-ounce whole bean or ground bean bags. That's going to launch in the next couple of weeks. So people can purchase that online through our website, fatmilk.com. And we are starting to push it out through social media forums pretty soon. But yeah, and then after that, we will have our brick and mortar, which is currently under negotiations right now.
Yay, that is so exciting. So
I know.
not only are you launching your coffee shop and you're so close to it being available to everyone, but on the other hand, you're also launching Yip. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
So what is Yip?
So yep, it literally means to help in Vietnamese. So it's spelled GIUP, and it's like to yep, it's like to help and to serve.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where the name, is derived from. But Yip is all about tackling climate change, and it's
Mm-hmm.
also a creative way of me integrating my pharmacy degree, my pharmacy expertise and knowledge into a consumer product, which is something that I love. It's like consumer products, consumer brands, and kind of like creating a brand and a strategy around all of that. So
That's super exciting. So, if you are launching two businesses, but you have your pharmaceutical degree, how are you going to balance that? Or you're no longer looking at pharmaceuticals and you're just going to do businesswoman? What's going on with that? You spent all this time in school, so now what?
I know, it's crazy because I feel like a lot of people get this misconception. This is a very untraditional route that I'm doing. So this is something that I want to really make people understand is, absolutely the investment was definitely committed to pharmacy school in terms of effort, time, money. It is not cheap and it is not easy to be a pharmacist. It's a doctorate degree, So I think a lot of people get this misconception what pharmacy really is, because when you think of pharmacy, you think of your, neighborhood, your neighborhood pharmacy that is on every corner.
Totally. I used to go to a place called Owen's, little tiny shop, little neighborhood pharmacy.
Exactly. And your first, perception of a pharmacist is the person behind the corner. They're very, not behind the corner, behind the counter. They're very accessible. They, dispense drugs, and that's kind of it. That's all you really see.
Yeah.
But what you don't see, I think what you don't see, especially people graduating from pharmacy school, is that there's so many other things that you can do with your degree. Obviously majority of people go into community pharmacy, but there's a number of people who are in, clinical / hospital pharmacy. There are a lot of people who go into fellowships and end up going into like big pharma, the big industries. And then there's a small niche of us who go into, the startup world and do our own thing.
So would you say you got your pharmaceutical degree because of that Asian stereotype, model minority? You have to become a doctor, you have to go to graduate school, you have to do all of this. And would you say that that was a big influence for you going in to get your doctorates? You have 3 degrees, correct?
Yes.
What hold on, smarty pants. First off, let's hear about your degrees. What do you have your degrees in? And then secondly, do you think that your Asian background influenced you getting these?
Yeah. So I have a bachelor's in chemistry with a concentration in forensic science. So I thought I was going to be a criminal lawyer.
Ooh, you were going to solve murder mysteries.
I know. But honestly, that changed. I have my master's in finance, which is totally random, but it's actually becoming very beneficial now. And then I have my doctorate in pharmacy. So, yeah.
Okay, so when you were in your bachelor's studies, you thought you were going to go into the crime field, basically, forensic sciences, and then you decided that wasn't for me. I'm going to go on to get a finance degree to do what? What was your thought between those 2 degrees?
Yeah, I think the one thing during my undergraduate studies was I knew deep down, no matter what, I wanted to go into business. Like I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to have my own companies. I wanted to create. I wanted to take the lead in whatever it is that I do. So I knew I wanted to do something business related, and that's what motivated me to go into something that would help me, help me in the future when it comes to starting my own thing or going off on my own. So that's kind of where that idea came into place. I think after my master's, I had some cultural pressures tell me, pharmacy. And yeah, I don't really tell a lot of people this, but yeah, I would definitely say I succumbed to family pressures, and that's what ultimately led me to go to another 4 years of higher education and get my pharmacy degree.
So if you don't mind sharing, what sort of pressures were put on you? Because I'm sure a lot of our listeners are also face these same challenges when they're doing their studies. There's a lot of parental pressure to do certain careers later on in life or to achieve a certain status. So what did you experience?
Yeah, I think, when you're young, you don't necessarily know what you want to do, but you probably have a good idea of what you don't want to do. And the thing is, you know, unless you have a very clear idea of what you want to do, who you want to become, what's your next steps, like you actually have a plan, like a
Mm-hmm.
day-to-day plan, month to month, like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year plan down the road, it's very
Mm-hmm.
easy to be influenced by traditional Asian parents who ultimately want the best for their kids, right? Like all
Mm-hmm.
of the pressures that I faced, and I know a lot of other Asian, first gen or Asian Americans face is,
Mm-hmm.
they have the pressures of their parents who want their children to be successful and to have a secure job and to have a stable job because they went through so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because they've gone through all of those obstacles, and many of them are obviously refugees and came here for a better life. One, you feel the pressure to satisfy that, to make sure that your parents didn't go through all of that for no
Mm-hmm.
reason. It wasn't for a total waste. And two, if you don't have a clear plan of what exactly you want to do, you will eventually succumb to those pressures because it's a good plan. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
secure plan. It's a stable plan. It's not like they're trying to tell you to do whatever. They're telling you to do something that's not going anywhere. Healthcare isn't going anywhere.
Yeah,
Engineering isn't going
absolutely.
anywhere. And it's a well-paying job. So I feel like I was definitely influenced by that.
Do you think there's a difference between the pressures immigrant parents give to their first generation children versus parents who are first generation giving to their second generation kids? Do you think there's a difference in that type of pressure?
Yeah, I think there's a huge difference. I think the things that we put on our children, not that I have any, but are the things that you experience personally and what you see as the better alternative, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
for for my parents, the better alternative was, to go to pharmacy school or to go to med school, law school, or engineering school, or whatever the case is. For me, I think when I have children, and don't quote me on this, I don't know because I don't have any kids yet, but I
Okay.
always I always tell myself that I wouldn't push my kids to go to school. Like, obviously, go to high school, whatever, get your
Mm-hmm.
basic learning. But I would probably encourage my kids to go out into the world and get real life experiences and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, take risk and fail and learn to pick yourself back up. Like, I don't think I would kind of push college on my kids unless
Mm-hmm.
they really wanted to go to college, or I wouldn't push, higher education on them. I think there's value in having children just go out there and experience, what you will eventually experience after you graduate. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, totally. Totally. So what sort of advice would you give to any of our listeners right now that are sort of in a similar position? They've either gone into their degree or they've completed it and they've got this pressure, but they have this feeling in the back of their minds and in their hearts that they really want to do something different outside of their pressure, their internal family pressure. What sort of advice would you give?
I would tell them that at some point in your life, you will reach a breaking point. At some point, you will be so fed up with what you're doing that for most people, they will eventually pursue their dreams and their passions or whatever it is that they want. My advice would be, if you're going to do it anyway, do it now. You know, um,
Just go out and do it, babes.
if you're gonna do it, do it now. Do it while you can enjoy it even more. But for me, I would say it's timing. There's a specific time in everyone's life that it's
Mhm.
gonna make the most sense. There's not gonna be a perfect time, but it's gonna make the most sense for you. Either that just be, you know, you feel like you've put in enough time at your day job to where you feel comfortable walking away and you really gave it a chance. And now you've understood that this is 1,000,000% what you don't want to do, but you just have to kind of trust that you have to feel comfortable enough to walk away from it. And so that's what I would say. I would tell people to be really cognizant of where you are in your life, and then be brave enough to walk away when you feel like you've given it your all and now you're just done.
And would that be the same advice you'd give to someone who is already in their career? Because I know you were a pharmacist for some time, and then I feel like you applied that same advice to while you were in the middle of working as a pharmacist. You were just like, you know what? This is not what I want to do.
Yeah. I think since the day I started pharmacy school, I think I was always brainstorming, and you can ask my pharmacy friends. They were like, this girl should not be here. But
just trying to find a way to get out early on.
exactly. Like I was just always thinking of anything and everything of like, how do I pivot pharmacy to doing something that I love, you know? I think everyone knew I wasn't meant for traditional pharmacy. So I think if this isn't what you want to do and you feel like you're doing it for all the wrong reasons, but you want to stick it out because that's just who you are, I would say continue to do so, but always be aware, always be alert. I'll continue to wonder, question, ask yourself, what about this? What about, what about that? What can I do with my degree and all of these different angles? I would continue to encourage people to always seek those answers and ask those questions, because eventually you will come to a point in your life where you've asked enough questions, you've been curious about enough things that you just go all in on that one thing that makes the most sense.
Yeah, you've been asking the questions and now it's time to actually do it.
Yep.
Yeah. So
exactly.
to wrap up today's interview, I kind of wanted to end on a fun note. Could you tell us a little bit about your favorite Vietnamese food, culture aspect? Not the coffee. We know you love your coffee. Just something fun to share with our listeners.
Yeah, there's a lot of French influences in Vietnamese food.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you know, but the French colonized Vietnam. And so they left a lot of French, influences on Vietnamese culture and food. So, I mean, one of my favorite foods I would have to say is like the banh mi, which is a baguette. I'm sure you've had it, but it's like the baguette with the radishes and all the meats. And like, that's one of like my go-tos. Like when I went to Vietnam earlier this year, that was like, if I saw banh mi on the street or literally in a gas station, I was like, I need to try it. Like, I need to have all the banh mi's. And yeah, I just couldn't get enough of it. So I would definitely say that's like one of my favorite Vietnamese foods. It's
Do you
like
have a
easy
favorite
on the go.
Do you have a favorite banh mi spot in Chicago?
I don't. I usually just go, like, if you go to Uptown, which is like Vietnamese area, there's quite a few. I mean, I don't know. I just kind of like try them all out. Unfortunately, it's pretty far away from where I live, so I don't get to go up there that often. But there is one of my favorite banh mi places in St. Louis, and it's called the Banh Mi Shop. They actually just recently opened, and yeah, it's like all banh mi's, and it's super good. So.
Well, you heard it, listeners. Go to St. Louis to the banh mi shop to get your best banh mi ever. Thanks so much, Lan, for coming on today. Where can our listeners find more of you, more of your businesses, more of anything?
Yeah, the best place to reach me or find me, contact me, DM me, whatever, would just be on social media, on Instagram. You can find me on She Is This. With 2 I's in this, or on Fat Milk with 2 I's in Fat Milk. So I'm usually pretty good about my phone and my social media. So
awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. And if our listeners want to catch more of Lan, we do have a Patreon exclusive mini episode, so you can catch us over there. Thank you, Lan.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Make sure to catch our videos on YouTube and Patreon. Patreon does have a bonus mini episode with Miss Lan, and we talk about her experience in her recent beauty pageant, which is very exciting. And we do a fun little Q&A at the end. If you want to connect more with us, you can catch us over on Twitter at The Asian Tales or on Instagram at The Asian Tales Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time.